Hello, and welcome to Beyond Technique, the podcast that empowers photographers to bring their businesses to the next level. Brought to you by Platypod, Photofocus, and Cohen University. This is Chamira Young, and I'm joined by my co-host and CEO of Success, Skip Cohen.
Whoa, CEO of Success.
So official.
I appreciate you saying that, but everybody needs to remember that when you look at somebody's career and you're going, boy, they're really successful, you have no idea what kind of muck or challenges or failures that they have wandered through in their lives to get there. It's kind of like saying that somebody is a 25-year overnight success.
So true.
Yeah. I mean, this industry is obviously success means you've had more wins than losses, but it's those losses that make you strong. And I don't want to get on a soapbox on that stuff now because it's a new year, and what an exciting way to start. Platypod is a sponsor of Beyond Technique, and this is the first episode of the new year. And we're going to do something a little different, but so is Platypod. I don't know how many of you have noticed. We've done a lot of posts on it. Chamira and I are both helping Platypod with their marketing, and just recently they announced the launch of the Kickstarter campaign for an incredible new product that is absolutely going to change the way photographers level, called Platyball. And the technology, Chamira and I have seen this not quite from the beginning, but certainly from the beginning of a finished product, and it is just going to be remarkable. And the technology behind it, no knobs. They've turned the traditional tripod head upside down. And today, at the same time that this podcast is airing, there's an incredible presentation on Scott Kelby's The Grid. If you go to The Grid, registration is free, and it's the launch of Platyball and its Kickstarter campaign. And for anybody supporting the campaign, for all backers in that first day, there's a special bonus gift of a free Platypod Ultra. So Chamira and I are pretty excited about working with the whole team at Platypod, and especially, Chamira, what do you think of this new product?
Oh my gosh, it is very, very exciting. It changes everything that we know about ball heads, and it's a completely new, fast, easy way to level our images. So I'm pumped. And by the way, we'll make sure to include a link in the show notes for our listeners who want to check this out. And what a coincidence that it's coming out today. It lines up with this episode. That's perfect.
Oh, it's just great. And since Platyball's starting the year out right for Platypod, we're going to start the year out right. In fact, that's our topic today. Mm-hmm. No guests. It's just me and Chamira. But in the next 30 minutes, we're going to cover, 28, 29, 30 different things that you need to think about to help make 2020 your best year ever. And I know it's kind of tacky and cheesy, but we want to help you thrive, not just survive.
Exactly. You have to. Yeah. It's important to come into the year planning as opposed to just flying by the seat of your pants, which I've tried that years ago with my photography business. And guess what? It does not work. Planning is the name of the game. So we are going to cover a lot of fantastic points today.
Well, go ahead. You want to start?
Yeah.
Let's just dig in.
All right. First one. So number one, it is key that you develop a routine to start each day. Now, I mentioned flying by the seat of your pants for the year, but this absolutely applies to a day-to-day basis. It's very important not to react to the fires that may happen throughout the course of the day, because if you're just reactionary, you're actually not moving forward with your business. And just to share a little bit about my routine actually starts the night before. So every night I have a to-do list of what I'm going to do the next day, so that when the next day arrives, I can hit the day running and be as productive as possible. A lot of what I do is I call it eating the frog early. Have you read the book? What is it? Eat That Frog? Eat the Frog?
I have not read that book, and I'm completely lost with eating the frog.
Essentially, it is a term that refers to, it's by Brian Tracy, the great Brian Tracy, and it's called Eat That Frog. And if I have it right. So I haven't read the book, but I've read a lot about the book and little snippets of the book. It's about doing the hard thing first each day. The thing that is the hardest, such as eating a frog, or for our listeners, it may be writing out a blog post. For example, doing it as early as possible in the day so that you've done the most important thing earlier in the day so that you don't forget to do it later in the day. And so for me, that's essential because I only have so much bandwidth. And so the first part of the day is key. And so as far as my routine for each day, I do the most important things first. I'm eating that frog. And then from there, I'll schedule in a little bit of physical activity partway through the day when I need to be refreshed. And then I go back to what I'm doing. For example, if it's a day where I'm at my computer, I'll do another set of work later in the day. But it's all about a routine, all about a productive routine each day.
That's a good one. Let's go to number 2.
Let's do it.
I want everybody to take a look at the policies that you have. First of all, review the policies you have. But second of all, some of you have policies. For example, if you cancel your session, it's a non-refundable deposit or something like that. And a lot of those policies are out there because somebody got burned way back when and told you need to have your policies posted. Well, what's happened is some of your policies are so tough it would scare an IRS auditor. So get those policies off your website. There's no question, you need to have some policies in place, but make it part of the contract discussion or when you're meeting with the client. Don't just put it up on your website that says, if your scheduled date is canceled, you will never see your deposit again, or your firstborn child. I mean, just clean it up. They're so tough. The other one that kind of goes with that is this is the time of year to take a look at your price list. But you really need to do it with a little bit of forethought. First of all, take a look at where you are in your market. I know everybody would love to get top dollar, but sometimes the way to get it isn't just by charging more, but it's by having layers of prices. For example, a low end, a medium end, and a high end, if for example, you are a wedding photographer, because people will strive to go higher. It's the same way if you've ever bought a car. They'll never show you the stripped down model. They'll always show you the loaded one. And then when you're looking at the stripped down, that is the one you can afford, then you're going to start adding in accessories. So it's the same way. And remember that people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want. So it does become emotional. So take a look at where you are in your market and then start thinking about your price list. And again, maybe it's not a matter of bumping up your prices, but giving consumers a feeling that they're getting more for their money and understand what it is they're buying, whether it's in services or new products.
That's great. That's great.
Number 4 is yours.
Number 4. So it's so important that we continuously feed our brains. As business owners, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, and it's whether you're full-time, part-time, or even just shooting photos for fun, it's important that we don't go stagnant. And this is especially true if you are running a business because there are new developments happening all the time. You can't do the same old all the time. It's important to, for example, read something inspirational. I love the work of Brian Tracy. I mentioned him before. He's got a lot of great, timeless business tips that will never go out of style and can breathe new life into your business. Also important, aside from reading, there's a ton of great stuff on YouTube. I love watching Pat Flynn, he's not a photographer, but he's a marketer and he loves helping people. And he's not about necessarily trying to make as many sales as possible, but helping, identifying your audience and helping them, keeping in touch with them. As photographers, we tend to struggle with marketing, authentic marketing in general. And so just a shout out to Pat. I find him very helpful for connecting with my customers and turning them into raving fans. So all to say, feed your brain.
And in fact, it doesn't always have to be about business and life. I happen to really love Melody Beattie, and sometimes she gets a little too spiritual for me, but just reading something that makes my head and my heart kind of work in sync is great. Also, sometimes just put in that you're searching for quotes about life or business or success in Google, and you will be amazed at what you find. And also check TEDx videos. There are some remarkable videos there that'll help you in terms of understanding business better or life or anything else that's challenging. So moving on, check your website and blog from different search engines every single day at different platforms, because just because it looks good on Chrome doesn't mean it's working in Safari. And I believe those are still the two top most used right now. But a few years ago, I spoke at a conference, and somebody in the audience talked about how every morning there were 4 people in the company, and each person had a different page or section of their website to check. And there's so many times when I've gone to share something when I'm teaching a workshop, and I found that the photographer's website just isn't working. It's not there. So check it every day, because your website not working is kind of like forgetting to unlock the front door if you were bricks and mortar.
So true. So true. And next, number 6, we want to stress the importance of keeping a journal. Now, as far as what a journal is for a specific person, this can vary per person, but I see it as something separate from your daily to-do list. Now, there are a lot of ways to keep journals, but it's very important because it helps you sort your thoughts and write down what's in your heart. There are online journals you can use. I personally like physical journals. I mean, literally just going to Barnes & Noble, and they have these cool looking journals, and I scribble down ideas, thoughts, not all related to business, actually. It's funny what goes in there. Drawings end up in there. I carry it with me when I'm out taking a walk, because you never know what kind of inspiration will occur to you for your business, but also for your life, for your relationships. It helps keep you grounded. What do you think, Skip?
I think it's great. I just buy these little hardbound line paper books, and
Yep.
I actually have it open every single day, because I found that I was writing phone numbers and things I needed to do to call somebody back, and I was doing it on scratch paper. And then at the end of the week, I'd have this scratch paper, and I'd say, oh, I did all those, and I'd throw it out, but then I can't go back to the phone number later on. And I do write it. I write it all out. This is all analog, and it's analog for me, as well as I've got a great big whiteboard over my desk, because it's the only way I can remember stuff if I literally write it down. So what was that? That was number 3, 6. We actually have a list, everybody, we put together. So number 7, take a look at your database of customers and clean it up. Your database is gold. And in an industry where you're always looking for new customers, everybody always seems to forget their previous customers. And as long as you kept a good relationship with them and they liked what you did. Now, if you screwed up and you were horrible to work with and it was early in your career or whatever, and they hate you, then odds are they're not going to come back. But for most photographers and everybody listening now, you've got a group of people that are like your ambassadors. So check your database, make sure it's cleaned up. I've had photographers say to me, well, I don't really have a database. I've got all their names in shoe boxes and index cards. Come on. In this day and age, it's so easy to maintain your database of customers and then use it. In fact, I'm going to take the next one too, because that's your base to keep in touch with key clients. Your greatest marketing tool is relationship building. So let's say take the top 20 clients you had last year and make it a point that you're going to check in with them a couple times a year. You want to know their birthdays. You want to know anniversaries. You're going to follow them in the community. I've had podcasts with photographers over the years. One of them, I'll let her remain nameless for the moment, but she knew she needed about 130 sittings a year to maintain her business. And she kept in touch she had about 65% of her audience that were return customers. And she made it a point to keep in touch with most of those people throughout the year, even if it's just to call and say, hey, I saw that Tommy graduated. How's he doing? Or it's your anniversary. But just keep in touch with key clients. And that's where your database comes in handy.
Absolutely. And I'll take the next one. So it's very important that we schedule a promotion each quarter. Now, this is actually related to what you were describing or discussing, Skip, about keeping in touch with key clients. So a great way to keep in touch with them and also to gain new clients is to schedule a promotion each quarter. And with it being January, this is the perfect time to figure out what you would like your promotions to be throughout the year. We suggest not just trying to figure them out on the fly, but planning a year ahead. These promotions don't have to be big. They can be something as easy and simple as an email blast or a direct mail blast. And as far as having a reason to run a promo, have fun with it. I mean, you could choose a season, a holiday, Christmas in July, a reason for mini sessions. You can make up a reason. It's up to you. And if you're doing one each quarter as a baseline, I mean, that's only four a year. So, I mean, it's a great way to keep your business thriving and breathing.
And another way to keep your business thriving and breathing, pick up the phone, call your lab, and yes, I'm suggesting you actually call and just ask whoever answers the phone, so what's new? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you want to go to the website, but calling the lab and talking to whoever your contact is, whoever your rep is, and saying what's new, technology is changing every single day. And your clients, they deserve the best. They deserve to understand why you're asking for more money for your services, maybe than another photographer in town. But they also need to understand how you're going to deliver their images. And calling a lab and saying what's new is going to open the door to all kinds of other products. I've written a couple times now about Bay Photo's Performance EXT metal prints. I've got a roughly 30 by 50 metal print outside. Remember, I live in Florida, so we've got a pool and we're outside almost all year long. But there's a print hanging on the wall there that's been out now for over a year with no change, at least nothing that I can see by eye. So it's just as vibrant as it was when I hung it out there. It's been in the sun, the heat, the rain. So call your lab and find out what's new and look for new ways that you can change your product line.
And for the next one, so we're on number, I think, 11 for this next one. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's super important that we meet with our accountants early. Meet with your accountant early. I know as photographers, as artists, we can be unicorns and rainbows, and sometimes numbers can scare us. Or maybe I'm just talking about myself because, fun fact, when I first started my business, I avoided the numbers. And talk about a mistake. As far as accounting for taxes, I put all of that off until the last minute, and I learned the hard way that's not the way to run a business. We have to remember that we are running businesses. You don't want to procrastinate. Don't wait until April 15th if you're here in the U.S. to take care of your taxes. Stay on top of it, and it's also a great time when you're meeting with your accountant to talk about what you can do in this upcoming year to put more dollars in your pocket. So I love picking my accountant's brain. It might annoy him a little bit, but totally worth it.
Well, I had an argument with Sarah Petty years ago. It wasn't really an argument. We were having lunch together, and we were arguing over whether 90% or 95% of the photographers in this industry were clueless when it came to their business. And that happens so often that so many of you don't know if you made money last year or not until you do your taxes. Yeah. Plus, to your point, Chamira, there are so many things that are deductible. Your luggage, for example, if you're hitting a lot of trade shows and doing a lot of travel, that's another component that you need for your business. And I'm not an expert on this, so going back to what Chamira said, talk to your accountant. And along with luggage and other things that are deductible, let's go to number 12 and talk about what gear do you need. Now, everybody jumps on the bandwagon every year. Everybody gets gear fever. And you get all excited. And, oh, man, if I only had that lens, my work would be different. If I only had a new camera. Now, you might really need a new lens or new lenses, and you may need a new camera. But first off, think about leasing before you buy. If you're buying a high-ticket item, try it out first. I know when I did a book with Joe Busink years ago, Joe talked about early on, he did buy a tilt shift lens because he was thinking how he'd use it and it would make his work look really different. Well, he barely used it. He tied up his cash, so cash flow was a crunch. And then in the end, he wound up selling it used and taking a loss. where he could have easily gone out, rented it for a weekend, tried it, see if it was going to work, and then make the decision of whether or not he was going to buy it or rent it. And I guess I'm combining actually 12 and 13 now, because the gear you need, think through whether or not you really need it. Vincent Laforet once talked about he never had the right lenses when he was starting out, and he said to about a group of about 300 people, so you know what you do when you don't have a lens long enough? And the answer was, no, what? And he said, you walk in closer. And that's what you might have to do. But just remember that you're trying to run your business. So first of all, analyze what gear you need. And I would recommend you do it before you start hitting the trade show circuit. CES is already pretty much come and gone. But a lot of you are going to be at Imaging USA. Then you've got WPPI. Think about what gear you need before you go, so that if there is something you really do need, you're going to have a chance to talk to the manufacturer. And then going back again, if you are going to buy something, just make sure that you really need to buy it versus renting it first to try it out.
You know, almost all of the equipment I have, at least for my lenses and my camera bodies as well, I rented those first. Talk about try before you buy. It's one of my favorite things to do because it does let you see how equipment can essentially transform your photography. Love it. Love it. So moving on to number 14, as important as having the right equipment, it's also important that we do relationship building 101. Relationship building 101. And a great way to do that would be to start a networking lunch. Now, this is something that I have not done myself as far as starting one, but I've certainly attended quite a few. And there's nothing like going out there, meeting people face to face. For me, that's been one of the key ways as far as getting new clients and getting new work. And as far as starting a networking lunch or networking coffee, networking breakfast, whatever you want to call it, it's not hard. I just saw on Facebook the other day, someone simply wrote in the Port Huron Facebook group, I'm looking to start this networking group. Now, it wasn't for photographers, it was for everybody. But it can be as easy as writing a post on Facebook. Or just the people that you encounter on a daily basis, invite them face to face, and you become the hub of the networking, a hub of networking within your community, which absolutely can lead to clients because just talking to people, everybody has a family, everybody knows someone who's getting married, everybody knows business owners. It's just a great way to build relationships.
I want to jump in and add on to this if you're good with it.
Sure.
Well, of course you are. That was a stupid question, everybody, for me to ask Chamira. Let's talk about starting a networking luncheon. And let me use an example. You're a wedding photographer, and imagine the power you would have if you knew a couple of florists in town, the caterer, the baker, the limo company, the tuck shop, the bridal salon. And what I'm suggesting is find a little diner, family kind of restaurant that's got a private or semi-private room. Come up with, everybody pays their own lunch, so you don't have to worry about it. Come up with something that's got, it's a $10, $12, $15 lunch menu. And then invite all of those people that are hitting the same target you are, including some other photographers, and bring everybody together just to talk about what's going on in the community. You will be amazed at what can happen out of something like that. And imagine as a wedding photographer, if you're sitting in between the tuck shop and a caterer or a wedding planner. And as you get to know everybody better, we're not making a big deal out of this. You're just getting together for an hour to talk about what's going on in the community and any trends or things you might want to share, or you might want to offer your services to all of them at upcoming weddings. You're shooting the wedding anyway. Take an image, take a couple of shots of the buffet, for example, to send to the caterer, or the table setting or something. I guess the next one is mine, since I grabbed a little bit of yours, but you started it. Let's go to your website and clean up your galleries. I reviewed somebody's website years ago because I regularly do website reviews. And this photographer had over 4,000 images in her galleries. Ooh. And now that's the extreme. But the reality is all you need is 6 to 10, 8 to 10, 12 great images in your gallery. But you need to make sure that each image is what I call a wow print, meaning it's so good that it's the only one you would have to show to get hired. So let's get in, clean your galleries up, keep your images fresh on your website, and remember that people are coming in and they're judging you based on that, on your work. That's all they've got. And typically your target audience is typically going to be mom or the bride, because women make 98% of the purchase decisions. So hire a photographer in the portrait wedding space, and that comes from a survey Kodak did 30 years ago, and I don't believe it has changed 1 point. So get your galleries updated, have fresh images, and make sure that every one of them is better than what Uncle Harry could get.
And related to keeping up your galleries, also important on your website is to build up a stash of blog posts. Now, if you're not posting at least twice a week, then it's a good recommendation to actually stop blogging. I can't even count how many websites I've been to, photographer and non-photographer, where you see the graveyard of blog posts where they started and then they stopped back in 2017, 2018 years ago. And, you know, I get it. Writing is tough for a lot of people, not just photographers, but it doesn't have to be tough. If you find a workflow that works for you, it can actually really help you build out your blog and therefore your website. And, you know, having a great blog is a wonderful way for potential clients to get a behind the scenes peek of your business or your brain or your inspiration. I mean, just to throw out a few examples, write a quick blog post after every session that you have while it's still fresh. And feature images, not just images, by the way, but images of the session, or maybe pick a session from a while ago, or maybe you hold on to it if you just shot the session until you release it to your clients, however you want to work that out. But make sure you describe what it was like interacting with the clients and how you took the images that they want. If you don't like writing, maybe record some thoughts on your phone and send it to a writer. I mean, if you use, for example, odesk.com has a ton of writers that you can actually hire. So you don't necessarily have to be the one physically writing out the article, but just record some thoughts on your phone or your computer, or even on a lot of computers. There's the whole, what's it called? It's kind of audio to text, where you can speak and the computer will write it down for you and then send it off to someone to clean it up. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways to get it done. But yeah, build a stash of blog posts.
And also, if you really hate writing, wander into the high school, talk to an English teacher, and find yourself an English teacher that would like to do a little moonlighting. Or find yourself an A student that's, I mean, you can go back to being a sophomore. You don't need the valedictorian of the senior class, just somebody that enjoys writing. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk to you for a few minutes and then take what you'd like to talk about in a blog post and turn it into a written document. So next on the list, what conventions and conferences are you going to attend in 2020? Now is the time. In fact, you should have done it weeks ago, but there's time now. You've got Imaging USA coming up later in January, followed by WPPI in February, followed by Shutterfest in April, followed by ClickCon in August, and PPE in New York. Those are the big ones that I think of. But all along the way, you've got state conventions, you've got major blockbusters like CES that's probably, I think, is going on right now, or it was just over. But the point is, take advantage of planning. You need your hotel reservations. Don't get caught short. You want your airfare. The earlier you book, booking at least 30 days in advance is going to help bring the best price in. And you also, and I'm going to just jump to the next one, Chamira.
Go for it.
Make it a point when you're at these conferences, you never eat a meal alone. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You never eat alone. Now, I won't deny that there are times when Sheila and I have gotten in late and we're tired and we're just going to do room service that first night. But for the most part, you're there to learn. You're there to network. You're there to build relationships. So take the time and meet somebody for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. never eat a meal alone. Being able to have a conversation over food is one of the all-time great ways to get to know somebody. And even if you're in a program with somebody you don't know, for example, who's sitting on your left or right, when it's done, say, hey, do you want to grab lunch and let's just compare notes about our business? Because everybody has the same challenges sooner or later, and you may be struggling with something in the middle of Ohio, and you're sitting next to somebody from Florida who had the same problems 6 months ago and was able to figure it out and has a solution for you. So this is a great industry where we all watch each other's backs, but you can't watch each other's backs if you don't get to know each other.
Some of the best connections I've ever made over food at conferences.
There it is.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Next on the list, number 19. So, hit up YouTube and follow your favorite icons. And this is a great way to find fresh inspiration. Earlier I mentioned Pat Flynn, and I have a host of others that I like to listen to while I'm working, while I'm writing, while I'm editing photos, while I'm doing social media stuff. It's important to get a fresh perspective outside of your own little bubble. And YouTube obviously has a plethora of material that you can get inspiration from, finding new lighting techniques, seeing what other photographers are doing. It's all about inspiration.
And speaking of YouTube, go find Google TEDx, and it'll take you into, there's about an 18-minute video by Simon Sinek, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Sinek, about why. It's really, really well done, and it'll help you think through some of your goals, maybe for marketing and how you're positioning your business. Along with that, and while you're watching and learning and being inspired on YouTube, take classes at every one of these conferences. Take at least one class a day that's completely outside your comfort zone. There's no growth when you keep taking programs over and over again that are all things that you already know and enjoy. Not that you shouldn't, and not that you shouldn't see some of your favorite icons who teach. But even if you're, for example, you're a wedding photographer, you think you never do macro work and will never have the need, but you're at Imaging USA or WPPI and there's a class on macro. Go take it. Understanding macro and the technology will help you do a better job on ring shots. It'll help you do a better job on table settings, on the flowers, on hand posing if you're doing ring shots and hands and flowers at a wedding. But it's so often that a photographer says, well, I don't do that. And then you pass up that class when no matter what it is, it will enrich your skill set. And you don't want to ever say to a customer, I'm really sorry, I don't do that. You want to at least be able to try, or you want to understand the technology well enough to send them on to somebody who is an expert. So grab a class outside your comfort zone.
And speaking of enhancing your skill set, another great way to do that is to second shoot for another photographer, even for free. Imagine that. Now, before we start getting angry emails from listeners, just understand that experience is priceless. And rather than being caught by surprise going into a photo shoot, or let's use a wedding as example, which can be like herding cats, rather than going into a wedding as the primary or only shooter and being caught by surprise because you've never done it before, which by the way, I've been there, it's not fun. Second shoot for another photographer and learn on their dime. The experience that you gather, you can't put a price on. This is great for weddings. This is great for other event photography. It's just a great way to really be thrown into the thick of things, see how things go, and also watch the photographer that you're second shooting for. Observe how they do things, how they interact with people, and that will help you figure out what you want to do or what you should not do. So there's nothing wrong with second shooting for free.
I don't know if she still does it or not, but Bambi Cantrell used to shoot. Now, here's one of the finest wedding photographers in the world, and she used to be a second shooter like once a year. Mm-hmm. She would go shoot a wedding with another photographer, and it was a combination of just learning and doing something, learning, watching what they were doing and expanding her education and skill set. Next on the list, this is the shortest one of all. Check to make sure you have the right insurance and your insurance is up to date. If you've got a homeowner's policy and you think it's going to cover your gear commercially when you're out and about, it will not. And there's nothing worse than being at a conference, for example, and having your room broken into and losing your gear. So call your insurance agent and just make sure you have the right kind of insurance that relates to your equipment, that relates to indemnification. I know PPA has a great insurance program, and depending on how you look at it, you're either getting membership in PPA for free or your insurance for free. So take a look at it and make sure you have the right insurance.
And number 23, I think we're on 23 here.
I don't know.
I believe if my counting is correct. I'll call this 23, I'm pretty sure. So partner with other companies that share your target audience but are not necessarily competitors. This is a great way to build a marketing team throughout your local area where you all help each other. Remember, it's all about relationship building, and this is true for clients, finding clients, but also for other companies and businesses around you. For example, if you're a wedding photographer, there are a zillion other small businesses that you could partner with within your area. Florists, for example, bands, caterers, wedding dressmakers. So many businesses and components go into pulling off a wedding that introducing yourself to them and finding out how you can help them is a great way to build trust with them, and then they can refer work back to you. I've heard of wedding photographers who will go out and hit the pavement and find the florists, the caterers in their area and introduce themselves. I've heard of wedding photographers who, while interacting with a client and they're signing up a date for a wedding, they will ask their client, well, who's your florist? Who's your caterer? And when they find out that information, they actually reach out to the florists and the caterers and the dressmakers and the cake makers, and they introduce themselves as the photographer who's going to be at that wedding event, and they offer to take a handful of free images. Because a lot of times, if you're a caterer or a florist, you're not getting the best images of your work, of the wedding cake, and it's the wedding photographer who handles that. And so a great way to make friends is you're going to be taking images of that stuff anyway for the bride and the groom. So send them a handful of small images, and, that's really a great way to build relationships with them. Also, I want to add in, partner with other photographers as well. Because it's all about collaboration, creativity, and not so much competing with each other. For example, I partner with other wedding photographers in the area because I focus on business photography. And so I love sending referrals their way. And then they'll send referrals back to me. It
doesn't have to only be referrals. In fact, if you go to skipcohenuniversity.com and you type in Bruce Berg, B-E-R-G, in the search box, you will come up with a blog post from several years back. It was a guest post that Bruce did called A Promotion Worth Waiting For, or something like that. It's about the Lane County Children's Portrait Contest that takes place up in the Pacific Northwest every year. And you've got 3 competing studios that get involved. And over the last 20 years or more, they've developed this whole contest, and the whole community gets behind it. And Bruce is very open about how much it does for his business. In fact, if I remember right, the last one he did, and he talked about this, brought in $20,000 or plus or more during the slow season. So there's an opportunity there. And also, when we're talking about partnering, you could do a mailing together. You could take a wedding photographer, a limo company, and a florist, for example, and all do a mailing, buy a list together, split the cost on the postcard, do an oversized 6x9 postcard. Each of you take a third. And what happens is that each partner becomes an ambassador for the other. And Chamira, you should take the next one, because you've done a great open house when you moved to Michigan.
Number 24. Yeah. Yes. Hosting an open house. So long story short, I moved to Port Huron, a city I'd never lived in, didn't know anybody, already a million photographers. I wanted a way to stand out, and so I hosted an open house. I did not have a studio. If you want to host an open house, it is not a requirement that you have a studio. I essentially, speaking of partnering with other companies, I essentially partnered with a co-working space in town. If you're listening and you want to host an open house, look at businesses in your town that you can partner with. I could have partnered with a florist or any other small business that shares my target audience. For me, my audience, I like working with other businesses, business headshots and portraits. The co-working space, they were looking for more businesses to move into their space. So hosting an open house at their location was an excellent way to promote them. It was a wonderful way to get my name out there. I essentially went from knowing who I was to a bunch of people being exposed to Chamira Studios photography. I actually made it open to everyone. So I did a certain number of headshots, promo headshots at a discount, but anyone that wanted to come, you didn't have to buy a thing from me. I said, show up and eat the food. And I made sure to shake everyone's hand. Everyone got to meet me firsthand, and it was the best way to really kick off my business in the area.
A great way to do it. And again, the point is you don't have to have a studio to do an open house. In fact, if you put in Chamira's name, actually, we'll have the link here in the podcast because there's a great video that I posted that has that Chamira put together that was the marketing piece for the open house. So get your work on display in a local restaurant or doctor's office. Years ago, I'm going to mention Bambi again, at a Starbucks in Walnut Creek, California. Bambi went in and decorated the area in the Starbucks, and everybody's been in a Starbucks. It's relaxing. It's meant to feel like you're done at home, except normally you wouldn't have 30 people sitting around that you didn't know. Put your images up on the wall. A doctor's office. The last course that doctors take in medical school is how to decorate your lobby, your waiting room for 50 cents, and they're horrible. And the magazines are outdated. Go in and talk to your doctor. And if it's a pediatrician, for example, and you're a children's photographer, what a perfect way to show some of your work and then just leave a stack of your business cards in the corner. Now, you're going to need to spend a little bit of money and frame them and make them look right. But you can always rotate them over. In fact, Helen Yancey used to talk about how she got started, and it was similar to Bambi at Starbucks. She had a display in just a local restaurant and had her work out there for people to be able to see.
Love it. I'll take us to number 26, and I'll keep it short and sweet because I know we're coming up on the end of our time here. Get enough sleep, get enough exercise, take care of yourself. In a nutshell, your health is your wealth, and when your health suffers, everything suffers, especially when you're running a business. It comes down to making time for yourself. You cannot burn the candle at both ends. And so with this being January, the month of New Year resolutions, make enough time to get enough sleep at night and then work in some easy exercise into your day. Make it something that you enjoy, even if it's just a walk in the park. You will find that taking this time to take care of yourself will actually help your business be more lucrative. Who doesn't want that? Exactly.
And in terms of sleep, by the way, sleep is like a bank account. And there are so many of us that from time to time we overdraw the account. Everybody's body is different. Everybody has a different amount of sleep they need. And I know with 2 puppies in the house, for the last few weeks, my sleep has been at a low. And I can feel it. And now things have kind of opened up and the puppies get it. And we're getting more sleep. And that leads right into pay attention to burnout. All of you know the signs. You don't recognize it. Sometimes you just think you're short-tempered and I'm just tired. But there are times when you need to simply take time for yourself. You need to step away from the business. You need to take a walk. You need to take your maybe you need to take your camera out and just go shoot for a couple hours the way you did when you first started. Maybe it's something that's completely outside of your specialty. Chamira and I have had a lot of guests on Beyond Technique and Mind Your Own Business and Tamron recipes that talk about special projects to help stay motivated. Pay attention to that feeling. You know when you're hitting burnout. And maybe it's a case where you're going to take the weekend. You're going to get away for a day. You're going to walk away from the business and you're going to give yourself a break before you crash and burn, because it's twice as hard to get back on your feet when you really have hit the wall. But when you see yourself flying towards it, stop, walk away, and step away so that you don't crash and burn. It's really important. And I don't care how good-natured you are and how well-adjusted you are, how good your skill set is. Everybody gets to that point where they feel the pressure and you don't even realize it sometimes. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, what's wrong with me today? I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to deal with whatever it is I've got to do. And that's when you know your procrastination list has become longer than your list of things you've accomplished during the day.
Yep, been there. And so number 28, ask for help when you need it. As business owners, or even just as people, we don't know everything. And a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. And then you find out that there's something you didn't know and you want to learn how. I mean, even for an example, editing your photographs, reach out to other photographers in your area or online and ask questions. It's a great way to not only build relationships with other creatives in your area or online, but it also helps improve your business. So don't be ashamed to ask for help.
It's funny. I've always thought that this was a guy thing where our egos get in the way. And in fact, there's a cute joke, which is going to sound like it's off color in the beginning, but the joke is, why does it take, 1 million sperms to fertilize one egg?
Oh boy.
And the answer is none of them will ask for directions. So don't, and it's funny, I've always thought it was a guy thing, but women are just as bad. The point is that we all take a lot of pride in things we can do, and all of us to a point are DIY people, and we want to do it ourselves. And then you realize that, wow, if I just asked for help. And there's so many times, in fact, just before we got started today, I was asking Chamira for a tip on how to clean up a recording on a podcast I just did yesterday. Ask for help. You've all got a network for a reason. And along with asking for help, I guess I'm taking the last one here. Hug your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, those people that are closest to you. You've got to keep them plugged into what's going on with your business. So many of us, you get to that point where you just wanted to kick the dog and you don't really know why, and it's out of that frustration you had. And unless your family knows and your closest friends know, all right, what dragons are you trying to slay today? Keep them plugged in, and to the good news as well. So what I'd actually written down here for this one was hug your spouse. And I always, on Sunday morning reflections, I always talk about go for those 11-second hugs, which they're now saying should be 20. But there is scientific data out there that says longer hugs become more therapeutic. So take the time, hug your spouse, support your family. And when I say support your family, I'm not talking about what you bring home that pays for the house and the education and all the other things, whether you're the breadwinner or not. Take the time to let them know about your business and let them know things that are going on. Keep them plugged in instead of in the dark. And everybody, that's 29 points that we just did in about 44 minutes.
That was fun.
So there it is, everybody.
Love it.
And we hope it helps. And I'll remind everybody of one more thing. If you're stuck and you've got a challenge and you're asking for help, remember that Chamira and I are out here.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And speaking of that, where are you, Skip, online?
I'm at skipcohenuniversity.com with everything I write. I'm Skip Cohen on Twitter. I'm Skip Cohen on Facebook. And my email is skip@mei500.com. And Chamira, where do they go to find you?
Folks can hit me up, send me an email at chamira@photofocus.com. That is my first name, CHAMIRA @photofocus.com. We love getting your questions, your ideas, your feedback. This was a fun episode.
Yeah,
this was cool.
And just before we close, I want to remind everybody, go check out www.platyball.com and take a look at the new Platyball. It's a pretty amazing Kickstarter campaign, and it's another one of those tools that's going to help you expand your creativity and become even better, along with everything in Platypod.
It's a game changer for sure. It's exciting. We want to thank our listeners for joining us. Please tell your friends about this podcast, especially if they want to make 2020 better than ever. We look forward to having you with us next time on Beyond Technique, brought to you by Platypod, Photofocus, and Skip Cohen University.